so I was going to ask about that because at Toddyboy on Instagram did ask, what was the biggest crash you've ever been in, and what was it like? So I guess this sort of leads. I'm assuming that is the one in 2000 is your biggest.
Well, I've had a few.
A few big ones. We can talk them through as we go through, the seasons. But this one at Mallory, your first big one.
Yeah.
I imagine that was. What happened?
Well,
what was it like?
The good news is that I was racing with a full roll cage. Caterhams can be very dodgy if you don't have a full roll cage, if you roll.
Some, like the guy you were racing against, had just a hoop, didn't he?
He did. One or two people at that time did just have hoops. But I don't know really whether there was a particular reason, but anyway, the over-exuberance of the start of the season, people were dead keen to get on, race rusty, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I can't remember where I qualified. We head off in the race. We're about halfway into the race, and I'm dicing with a guy for 5th or 4th, something like that. Mm-hmm. And the way you overtake in a Caterham is all about slipstreaming, because they've not got any natural aerodynamic abilities. They're like a brick going through the air, so you come behind your competitor and you get a good tow, then you pop out of the tow and you sail by and then carry on around the next bend. And that's the way you overtake and you go up the field, And I was doing quite well. I was 4th or 5th, something like that. And the guy was behind me, who was a competent, able racer, but he didn't prove so to be particularly that day, sadly. He came behind me, down through Devil's Elbow. We're on the start-finish straight. He got a good tow, came out alongside me, started to come by me. We're on the start-finish straight right by the pits. But instead of just carrying on as you head towards the big bend at the bottom, can't remember what that's called now, he for some reason jumped to the right as though to block me before going into Gerrard's, it's called, the big bend, Gerrard's. We were a long way from Gerrard's. There was no need to do that manoeuvre. We're travelling at well over 100 miles an hour. He jinxed to the right and his right rear caught my left front, and that speared me into the end of the pit lane barrier at something in excess of 100 miles an hour. The car hit it hard, went up, over, landed on its nose, and then went over 3 times. It was like being in a washing machine.
Yeah.
And unbelievable, really. I mean, we didn't have car video, we didn't have video the way we do now. Anything
that
like
would
that.
have been amazing on video.
Yeah.
To catch that.
So, didn't have any of that. There are 1 or 2 pictures that we managed to keep of the car sat on its wheels. It landed on its wheels. I didn't really know what was going on. I did know that I had to let go of the steering wheel, because if you're holding the steering wheel and you've got your thumbs round it and the steering gets hit, the wheel spins round and it breaks your thumbs. So I let go of the steering wheel as I hit it, bang, it went over and over and over. I was not wearing arm restraints, and wearing Caterhams, really, you should wear arm restraints. They don't impinge on your ability to drive the car, but they're very, very good in case you have a rollover incident. Went over. When you're going over, the centrifugal force is so enormous you don't realise it, but your arms just come out.
Yeah.
And this arm came out and caught between the cage and the ground as we went over. It just went straight through and smashed this arm really, really badly.
Jesus.
It landed on its wheels, and then there was this amazing silence because the car had switched itself off. No. Which was great. So there was no fuel pumping or anything like that. It was not on fire. It was on its wheels. And I thought, what the fuck was that? What had happened? And I sort of moved. I thought, I can move my neck, and I felt, I think I can move my legs, and I could move. I thought, I think I'm probably all right. And then I realised that this arm was hanging just because I've got gloves on and my race suit and everything.
Held together by.
And then this complete silence, and then suddenly the pain, as this just went,
like immediate,
real awful pain. I knew that something bad had happened. I didn't know it was broken and smashed up because I couldn't see anything. Yeah. But it started to be really uncomfortable. And then all these people were around me, and they wanted to get me out of the car, but they're nervous that you've broken your neck. That's the And so they wanted to cut the car up to get me out on a stretcher.
Yeah.
And the medical people wanted to give me a shot of morphine to calm me down and for me to get more comfortable.
You said yes, please.
Well, I don't remember really saying a lot. I don't really remember. There was a lot of melee going on. Of course, whilst this was happening, Mum and you and your brother, who was 8 at the time, were up watching the race and had realised that there had been an incident.
They were at a different part of the track.
They were at a different part of the track, but they hadn't seen it because it was further round from where you...
So you were with Gary, the mechanic, weren't you? At that
Yeah.
stage? So was he on the pit wall?
Yeah.
So he saw what happened?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Gary was looking after me during all the... It was his first race where he was looking after me.
Oh my God. Jesus, that's a baptism of fire.
During the first year, I was doing it a lot myself.
Bloody hell.
Doing the fetching and carrying and all the rest of it. But I realised that you need proper support.
Yeah.
Gary's going to take the role on, looking after the car, looking after me at the race meetings. So it was his first meeting with us. He towed the car up, and he saw the whole thing from the pit wall. So must have thought, bloody hell, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Tried to go over to see what's happening, but everybody was kept away. They put like a big sheet up so that people can't see what's going on whilst they're dealing with the incident.
And that was the same with Mum and myself.
Yeah,
and David
so they couldn't see what was going on. So Tony, my mate, was with you and David and Mum.
Yeah.
You went down to try and see, Mum's holding on to you. You're only 10, 12 weeks old. David's obviously frightened that his dad's dead or something like that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mum's not too happy either, so really, really difficult. Anyway, I wasn't dead, pleased to be able to say.
Yeah.
But I was in a bad way. Anyway, they eventually cut the car up, they got me out, I was sent to the medical centre, and then Mum was allowed to come over with you, and I think I was then needed to be bundled off to the local hospital, which was in Leicester, I think. And we got taken off. Mum came, I think she came in a car. No, I think she came in the ambulance with me and you. And then somebody brought the car. I think Tony brought the car. And then David went back with Gran, I think. I think Tony took David back to Gran and he stayed with Gran. I was in the hospital and I was lined up on a trolley with loads of people who got broken ankles playing football Sunday afternoon.
Right.
And there was me all smashed up, and I was dosed up with plenty of morphine, but it wasn't good. But they won't do operations on a Sunday afternoon, so the idea is they make you comfortable and they'll do the operation on the Monday. So they put a temporary cast on this and then did the operation on the Monday, where they, because what had happened was the 2 bones in here in your arm had been smashed completely apart. So instead of being like that, they're like that.
Ouch.
And they won't grow back together because they're too far apart. So they've got to be moved back together. And then they put steel or some kind of metal bars along each bit and they drill through. So that's why there's all these bolts in here. Yeah. Put it all back together and then put a plaster on it. And you recover. Or that's in theory what happens anyway. Mm-hmm. And I had a pretty uncomfortable time in the hospital. And in fact, I checked myself out on the Wednesday morning. I couldn't stand being there. Checked myself out, got back here, and I was put in charge of Epsom, at Epsom Hospital, who were looking after me whilst this recovered. I had a lot of business to do, and I needed to get on. So I was working again by the Thursday.
Jesus.
The disappointment was that they, the situation. The race was red flagged, and I think I was 5th or something like that in the race because they go back to the end of the previous lap, and I think I was in 5th. But they wouldn't declare it a result until they'd had the results of the inquiry, and then we had a big inquiry as to what had happened and what went wrong. Right. And there was a big argument. And that was the start of a lot of arguments from end of March right through until the summer, where we had to deal with judicial proceedings. Because I was being accused of dangerous driving, whereas it's entirely the other guy's fault. Mm-hmm. But we had to argue our case in front of a big committee, sort of a semi-legal arrangement. I was then found not guilty, and he was found guilty. He was banned for 6 months or something. I was reinstated and my points were reinstated. And then we had another semi-legal situation because we were accused of bringing the club into disrepute. And again, I then had to fight that. And again, I won my case, I'm pleased to say. The other guy lost his case. And the club made a formal apology to me for making the initial statement that I brought it into disrepute. And I asked that there be a statement in Autosport. And there was. Marcus Pye issued a little note saying that I'd been found innocent of all charges and that, I'm a club racer and I expect to be helped out by the club, and that was that. But I wanted to go racing again. That car was destroyed. It had cost me £11,000 plus all the costs of getting it race ready. It was totally destroyed. Everything about it was totally destroyed. So I needed a new chassis. The engine still was fine. So Gary then started rebuilding that as a road car, which we subsequently sold, and we bought an ex-championship winning car in the April.
Nice.
I'm recovering from my incident. You're supposed to keep this thing on for 6 weeks. I got it on after 5, and once you've got it off, you can start doing all of the physio, because it's all about the physio and getting the movements back. Because initially, this all withers away. You've got no muscle, and you're in a right mess. But you've got to work hard at the physio to get it working properly and get the flexibility and all the rest of it. I booked to do a race in May, but actually I didn't feel fit enough to do that. But I did race beginning of June. I think it was the 11th of June up at Cadwell Park in the new car that we'd bought.
So how long was that between the crash and?
About 11 weeks.
Jeez.
I was about 5 weeks with this and about 6 weeks of recovery of physio until I was physically okay enough to do it. And went back in, and I remember the first race after the incident. We were off racing, and it just felt like people were trying to knock me off. I had this incredible feeling that people were trying to knock into me and knock me off. That lasted a few laps, but actually it then went, and I've never had that feeling again. That all went, and you just get on with it, and try and do as well as you can. I remember when I had my first win now. But I always say once you've had your first win, you can go on and, start to do well.